My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. There is something unfolding behind the silence, something you were never meant to discover through gossip, suspicion, or fear. Heaven has brought you here because a private conversation has taken place, and although your name was not spoken carelessly, your presence filled every moment of it. Your soulmate secretly met someone close to you, someone who knows parts of your heart that you rarely show, and what they talked about has already begun to change the direction of everything. Do not rush away from these words. There is a reason your spirit felt restless before you found this message. There is a reason a memory, a face, or an old conversation may have crossed your mind without explanation. You sensed movement around your life before your eyes could understand it. You felt as though something was happening just beyond your reach, and you were right. But this was not a meeting designed to betray you. It was not arranged to mock you, expose you, or turn someone against you. The truth is far more emotional than that, and when you understand why your soulmate asked for this meeting, you will see that they were searching for something they could not find anywhere else. Your soulmate has been carrying a question about you for longer than you realize. Outwardly, they may have appeared calm, distant, busy, or even uncertain. They may have acted as though they had accepted the space between you. But beneath that appearance, their heart has been struggling with a truth that refuses to disappear. They have tried to reason with it. They have tried to silence it. They have even asked themselves whether what they feel for you is real or simply the echo of unfinished emotions. Yet every attempt to move forward has somehow led them back to the same place: your name, your memory, your energy, and the feeling that there is still something important left unsaid. That is why this meeting happened. It did not begin dramatically. There was no grand announcement and no crowd gathered around them. It began quietly, almost cautiously. Your soulmate reached out to someone close to you, someone whose opinion they believed would be honest. They did not choose this person randomly. They chose someone who has seen you when you were strong and when you were struggling. Someone who knows how deeply you care, how silently you suffer, and how often you protect others while pretending you do not need protection yourself. Your soulmate did not know how to begin. For several moments, they avoided the true reason for the meeting. They spoke about ordinary things, asked careful questions, and tried to hide the emotion behind their voice. But the person close to you could see through them. They noticed the pauses. They noticed how your soulmate's expression changed whenever your name came near the conversation. They understood that this was not a casual meeting. Something heavy had brought your soulmate there. Then your soulmate finally asked the question they had been afraid to ask. Do they ever talk about me? Those words may seem simple, but they carried months of hidden longing. Your soulmate was not merely asking whether you mentioned their name. They were asking whether they still lived somewhere inside your heart. They were asking whether the connection they felt had been shared or imagined. They were asking whether the silence between you meant the story was over, or whether both of you had been waiting for the other to become brave enough to speak. The person close to you did not answer immediately. That silence unsettled your soulmate more than any rejection could have. For one brief moment, they believed they had made a mistake by coming. They looked away and tried to appear unaffected, but something inside them began to fall. Their mind prepared for the answer they feared most. They imagined hearing that you had forgotten them, that you never cared as deeply as they did, or that you had closed your heart and moved on. But the answer they received was not what they expected. The person close to you said, "They do not speak about you often, but when they do, everything about them changes." Your soulmate became completely still. Those words reached a place in them that had been guarded for a long time. The person continued, explaining that you had never treated this connection as something meaningless. Even when you tried to hide your feelings, there were moments when your voice softened, your eyes became distant, or your entire mood shifted at the mention of something connected to them. You may not have confessed everything. You may have protected your dignity. You may have told others that you were fine. But someone close to you had noticed the truth beneath your silence. Your soulmate listened carefully, almost as though every sentence was restoring a piece of hope they had lost. Then came the part that changed the atmosphere. The person close to you said that you had been hurt more deeply than your soulmate understood. Not because you expected perfection, but because you believed there was something real between you. They explained that your silence was not coldness. It was protection. Your distance was not proof that you stopped caring. It was the result of carrying too many unanswered questions alone. Your soulmate lowered their eyes when they heard this. In that moment, the meeting stopped being about whether you still cared. It became a mirror. Your soulmate began to see their own choices from your side. They remembered moments when you needed reassurance and received confusion instead. They remembered messages they almost sent but did not. They remembered times when pride, fear, or outside pressure kept them from speaking honestly. They began to understand that while they were waiting for a perfect moment, you were slowly learning how to survive without the clarity you deserved. The person close to you did not attack them. There was no anger in their voice. That made the truth even more powerful. They said, "You may not realize it, but they defended you even when they were hurt." Your soulmate looked up quickly. This was something they had never known. The person explained that there had been moments when others questioned your soulmate's intentions. Some believed you should forget them. Some told you that anyone who truly cared would never leave you confused. Yet you refused to let anyone speak cruelly about them. You may have admitted that you were hurt, but you did not turn your pain into hatred. Somewhere inside you, you believed there was more happening beneath the surface than anyone else could see. Your soulmate was deeply shaken by this revelation. They had expected to hear that you were angry. They were prepared to discover that you had blamed them for everything. Instead, they learned that you had protected their character while your own heart was still healing. That truth awakened something in them. It showed them that your connection had not been built only on emotion. It had been held together by loyalty, compassion, and an understanding that existed even in the absence of answers. But the conversation did not end there. Your soulmate leaned forward and asked another question, one they had carried in secret. "Do you think they would ever listen to me if I tried to explain?" The person close to you took a slow breath before answering. They knew this was no longer a harmless question. Your soulmate was not asking from curiosity. They were considering a decision. A real one. Something inside them had already begun moving toward you, but fear still stood at the door. The response was careful. They might listen, but you cannot return with half the truth. Those words landed heavily. Your soulmate knew exactly what they meant. They could not come back with vague promises. They could not approach you only because they felt lonely. They could not speak beautifully for one night and disappear the next morning. The person close to you made it clear that your heart had already endured uncertainty. If your soulmate wanted to speak to you, they would have to come with honesty, consistency, and the courage to reveal what had truly kept them away. Then something unexpected happened. Your soulmate began to speak about themselves in a way they had not planned. They confessed that their distance had never been caused by a lack of feeling. It had been caused by the intensity of it. The more real the connection became, the more afraid they grew. They feared disappointing you. They feared losing control. They feared that if they allowed themselves to love you completely, they would also give you the power to hurt them completely. So they did what wounded hearts often do. They created distance before closeness could expose them. But the distance did not free them. It followed them into every quiet hour. They compared other conversations to the way you understood them. They noticed your absence in places where you had never physically been. They tried to convince themselves that time would make the feeling smaller, but time only revealed how rare the connection had been. The person close to you listened without interrupting. Your soulmate's voice became unsteady as they admitted something they had never said aloud. I thought they would be better without me. This confession changed the room. Your soulmate had not stayed away because they believed you were unworthy. They stayed away because a part of them believed they were unworthy of you. They saw the depth of your heart and questioned whether they could meet it. They noticed the way you loved, the way you gave, the way you carried others, and they feared becoming another person who disappointed you. But in trying not to become a source of pain, they created the very pain they were trying to avoid. The person close to you told them this gently. They said, you did not protect them by disappearing. You left them to create answers where only you had the truth. Your soulmate could not argue. They knew it was true. My child, there are moments when truth does not need to shout. It simply enters the room and leaves no place for excuses. This was one of those moments. Your soulmate saw that their silence had forced you to question yourself. You may have wondered whether you were too emotional, too hopeful, too open, or not enough. But the truth was never that you lacked something. The truth was that your soulmate lacked the courage to meet you in the honesty your connection required. And now that truth has begun to transform them. The conversation continued longer than either of them expected. Your soulmate asked about your life, but not in a careless or intrusive way. They wanted to know whether you were happy. They wanted to know whether you had changed. They wanted to know whether your heart had become closed because of what happened. The person close to you answered honestly. They said that you had become stronger, but not untouched. You had learned how to carry yourself differently. You had stopped chasing explanations. You had begun protecting your peace. But there were still moments when something reminded you of your soulmate, and a softness returned to your face before you could hide it. Your soulmate heard this and became emotional. For the first time, they understood that your healing did not erase the connection. It changed the way you carried it. You were no longer waiting in the same way. You were no longer willing to abandon yourself for someone else's uncertainty. Yet your heart had not become cruel. It had simply become wiser. This realization frightened your soulmate. They suddenly understood that you might still care, but you might no longer accept the version of them that once avoided responsibility. The door may not be completely closed, but it would not open for empty words. That is when your soulmate said something the person close to you never expected. I am not asking them to wait for me. I am asking how to become someone who can finally stand before them without hiding. The person close to you looked at them differently after that. Until this moment, they had not been sure whether your soulmate's intentions were sincere. They wondered whether this meeting was driven by curiosity, jealousy, or the fear of losing access to you. But this statement revealed a deeper change. Your soulmate was not merely seeking a path back into your life. They were confronting the person they had been. Heaven often begins restoration this way, not by changing circumstances first, but by revealing the truth inside a person's heart. Before a connection can be healed, the patterns that wounded it must be exposed. Before love can return, fear must stop controlling the conversation. Your soulmate then asked, "What did they need from me that I failed to give?" The answer was immediate. Clarity. Not perfection. Not constant attention. Not dramatic promises. Clarity. You needed to know where you stood. You needed honesty about what they felt. You needed actions that matched their words. You needed to stop guessing whether the connection was real. Your soulmate closed their eyes for a moment. They finally admitted that pretending had exhausted them. They had spent so much time controlling their feelings that they had forgotten what honesty felt like. They had tried to appear unaffected because vulnerability made them feel exposed. But the performance had become a prison. Then they revealed something that the person close to you had never heard before. There had been a moment, not long ago, when your soulmate almost contacted you. They wrote a message and read it several times. In it, they admitted that they missed you, that they regretted the distance, and that they had never stopped thinking about what the two of you could have become. But they deleted it. They feared it was too late. They feared you would reject them. They feared that you would read their words and feel nothing. The person close to you asked why they believed that. Your soulmate answered, "Because I gave them every reason to stop believing in me." That sentence carried no excuse. Only regret. The meeting had now become more than a secret conversation about you. It had become a confession. Your soulmate was speaking aloud the truths they had hidden even from themselves. And the person close to you realized that something significant was happening. But they did not make it easy for your soulmate. They asked a direct question. If you speak to them, what are you actually prepared to do differently? Your soulmate did not answer quickly. This was the most important pause of the entire meeting. Anyone can say they miss someone. Anyone can become emotional when they fear losing them. But love is revealed through what a person is willing to change, confront, and sustain. Your soulmate looked down at their hands as though they were searching for the truth inside themselves. Then they began to speak. They said they were prepared to stop using silence as protection. They were prepared to explain the circumstances they had hidden. They were prepared to admit where fear influenced their choices. They were prepared to listen to your pain without becoming defensive. They were prepared to accept that you may not trust them immediately. And then they said something even more powerful. They do not owe me another chance. But I owe them the truth. The person close to you became silent. This was the first moment when they believed your soulmate might truly be ready. My child, this is what you could not see while you were questioning the silence. Something has been changing in your soulmate. Not because someone forced them, but because the absence of your presence has revealed what your presence once meant. They have begun to understand that real love is not simply a feeling that appears in private. It is a responsibility to communicate, to protect, to show up, and to be truthful even when the truth is uncomfortable. The person close to you asked one final question. What is the truth you are most afraid to tell them? Your soulmate's expression changed. Until that moment, they had been speaking with increasing honesty, but this question reached the hidden center of everything. There was still one truth they had not revealed. One reason behind their silence that connected to the past, to someone else's influence, and to a decision they had regretted ever since. Your soulmate looked toward the door as if they were considering leaving. The person close to you noticed and said nothing. Several seconds passed. Then your soulmate whispered, "There is something they believe about why I left, and it is not the real story." The air became heavy. The person close to you leaned closer and asked them to explain. Your soulmate hesitated. They said that someone had interfered at a vulnerable moment. Someone had told them something about you that they believed without giving you a chance to speak. It was not a simple lie. It was a carefully shaped story built around a small piece of truth, making it difficult to recognize the deception. Your soulmate had made a decision based on that story. They had withdrawn. They had questioned your intentions. They had convinced themselves that you were hiding something. But over time, pieces of the story stopped making sense. And recently, your soulmate discovered evidence that changed everything. They did not reveal what the evidence was immediately. They only said that it proved you had been judged unfairly. It proved that someone wanted to create distance between you. It proved that your soulmate's greatest mistake had not been loving you too deeply. Their greatest mistake had been trusting the wrong person instead of trusting the connection they felt with you. The person close to you became visibly shaken. They asked your soulmate who had interfered. Your soulmate said the name quietly. And in that instant, the meeting became even more serious, because the person they named was someone your trusted person already knew. Someone neither of you had ever suspected. Your soulmate then reached into their pocket and placed something on the table. It was not a gift. It was not a letter. It was proof. Something they had carried to the meeting because they needed another person to confirm that they were not misunderstanding what they had found. The person close to you looked at it for several moments. Their face changed. Your soulmate asked, "Now do you understand why I needed to see you?" The person close to you did not answer at first. They stared at what had been placed before them, then looked back at your soulmate with a mixture of shock and concern. Finally, they said, "This changes more than you realize." Your soulmate asked what they meant. But before the answer came, the person close to you revealed that there was another part of the story your soulmate did not know. Something you had kept hidden to protect everyone involved. Something that explained why you never defended yourself as strongly as you could have. Your soulmate whispered, "What did they hide?" The person close to you took a deep breath, glanced once more at the proof on the table, and began to tell them the truth that could change everything between you. But the first words they spoke were not what your soulmate expected. They said, "Before I tell you what really happened, you need to understand what they sacrificed to keep you from finding out."